What is up everyone, it's Saber here and welcome to another Naruto What If you end up liking the video, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can take it back at any time and it really helps me out, and this is my main channel, so if you're interested in what if Naruto had Madara and the Kyuubi sealed inside of him, or what if Naruto was a low born in Westeros and became king, go check out my main channel. And if you're interested in what if Naruto was a assassin in Westeros, or what if Naruto was the long-lost heir to Whirlpool, go check out my third channel. And with all of the YouTube formalities out of the way, let's get into it. Miyuki smiled brightly as she entered a spare room she'd offered to Naruto for the night. He was still fast asleep, but she was already dressed for work. Nodding to herself, the Wind Daimyo became silent as an assassin and walked over to the right side of the bed. Naruto was facing this side. She looked at his sleeping face for a few moments. He looked cute with his hair all messy, an expression kind of peaceful. Smiling once more, Miyuki allowed her thoughts to wander to the ends of the world as she continued to gaze upon the prince that was sleeping before her. The smile on her face only grew as her thoughts became bold, and urges that she found hard to resist pushed her to do something she normally wouldn't. Honestly, she didn't know what to do in this kind of situation. Sure, she had a few relationships before, but her father never allowed a boy into their house. No, he was very firm about this. This in turn brought about this situation. She wasn't in a romantic relationship with Naruto, but just seeing him sleeping like that made her happy. She wanted to see him sleeping like that more, perhaps even snuggle into bed with him. The urge to run her hand over his cheek persisted, and she finally gave in, but she never went far as Naruto's eyes snapped open and his right hand blurred towards her throat. Miyuki let out a shriek of shock at the action and everything else. After that happened so fast she didn't see it. She found herself pinned down on the floor with Naruto on top of her. He was sitting on her stomach and a kunai pressed against her neck. She smiled nervously at him, her heart pounding a bit faster. Honestly, she was scared at this moment. Good morning, Naruto. She managed to speak despite the kunai pressed against her neck. Naruto was finally able to recognize the soft voice and hide the kunai. The first instinct of a shinobi was to act that way upon waking up on an unfamiliar bed. He processed everything that had happened last night whilst still on top of Miyuki. After everything became clear, he looked down at her apologetically. Sorry, he said. Shinobi instincts kicked and he finished smiling sadly. That was not all of it though. He knew another reason that caused him to react in such a way. It's okay, Miyuki responded, although his reaction shocked her. She shouldn't have tried to do what she wanted to do. She was invading his personal space. After all, Naruto shook his head. He'd seen the fear in her eyes. Even if it was only a flash of it. He placed his right hand on her chest. Her heart was beating a bit faster. I scared you, he said a bit sadly. Miyuki didn't deny it. It wouldn't help matters if she did that. She'd lived long enough to know this. I was, she said, but it is all right now. She wasn't going to comment on the fact that he was close to groping her. The only thing that stopped her from hitting him was the fact that he didn't seem to be conscious of it. Again, Naruto shook his head. He'd scared her. I'm sorry, Miyuki smiled sadly. Can you let go off me, she requested nicely. Naruto then took notice of his right hand and had the decency to look a bit sheepish despite the situation. He muttered an apology and got off the woman before he helped her stand up. After that he settled on the edge of the bed and Miyuki did the same on his left. Do you normally react like that when someone tries to wake you up in the morning? She wasn't trying to wake him up, but that will do. It would be a bit embarrassing if she admitted what she wanted to do, so that would remain her little secret for now. Naruto shook his head. No, he said, the territory is unfamiliar and I'd yet to recollect my memories of last night. That could explain why I am here. Being a shinobi, my first instinct is to pounce. Why do all shinobi act that way? She liked to believe that there was more to the story than just that he was a shinobi. She could understand that, but there had to be more. I wouldn't know, Naruto responded quietly. He refused to share any of his thoughts to her. He was a troubled child who had a lot of emotional problems to deal with. He'd thought he'd dealt with it all when he was with Itachi, but that doesn't appear to be the case after all the soul searching he'd done, and to think that he still held such fears inside of him, it was pathetic, and he could feel the bijou inside of him. Offering a nod of agreement, Miyuki nodded. She wasn't going to force things. You said the territory was unfamiliar. Now that it is familiar, will you smile at me next time? Naruto turned to face her with a furrowed brow. There's going to be a next time. Miyuki folded her hands across her bust and looked away so that she didn't have to stare at his naked chest. Of course, I thought you liked my company. Is it perhaps you've been false, leading me to offer you a place to sleep when you are troubled just so you can escape the following day and never come back? Naruto shook his head, mustering a smile. No, it isn't anything like that, and I do enjoy your company. It is quite refreshing. Then is there a reason there shouldn't be a next time? Naruto became thoughtful for a few moments before shrugging. I guess not, he said. Good. The Wind Daimyo stood up from the bed. Go wash yourself and meet me at the kitchen for breakfast, she said. Without even looking at him, she slowly walked out of the room and closed the door behind her. Once closed, she leaned against it and released a breath of relief. The woman shook her head before heading towards the kitchen. Few minutes later, the silence was a little bit uncomfortable. for Miyuki, but Naruto didn't seem to be too concerned about it. He was just eating his breakfast comfortably, like the air around them wasn't a bit tense. This actually forced the daimyo to stop eating and just stare at the blonde. "You're not making things easy," Naruto finally said, feeling the stare of the woman across the table. "Do you have something in mind?" Miyuki shook her head, clearing it of all the blurry thoughts. "So after this you are gone to leave?" Naruto nodded. He did note that her tone carried some hint of sadness. He just didn't comment on it, given his current state of mind. Indulging in it wasn't going to do him anything good. Sure, Miyuki was a wonderful woman and he liked her presence, but there was nothing going on between them that would make him feel obligated to question her about her sadness. "When are you going to return?" "I don't know," Naruto responded, looking deep into her eyes. "I haven't been doing much of my work lately, so I'm gonna be busy in the next weeks. I also have things to organize for the UN." "Oh, you still have that kunai I gave you?" "Yes," Miyuki nodded. "Use it like I told you. If you need to speak to me, if I'm not bound by any chains, I will come to you in a flash if you call." A week later, Itachi, Naruto said, gaining the attention of the Uchiha, "I am afraid that you will have to keep busy until things can settle down. I have received a report informing me about some of the activities of Awagakure. I have already spoken with Conan about it. It is not only that, but we will have to deal with more work once the United Nations officially begins." "I know," Itachi responded calmly. He knew that they would be very busy next month. They were already doing much work now. He was thankful that he had Kisame helping him in some matters, especially when it came to suppressing threats to the UNA. "I was referring to your body. Do you think you can hold out for a few more years? I do not wish for your life to end before the United Nations alliance starts to bring peace in this cruel world," Naruto said, looking straight at Itachi. The Uchiha looked at him without saying a word for a few moments before he finally spoke. "I will manage. The new drugs I have been taking have been helping. My eyesight is what troubles me, though. If I continue fighting, I may be blind in the next year or two." Itachi revealed he held no regrets over his Manjikyu Sharingan. However, he was lying to Naruto. The recent battles he'd been fighting have ruined his eyesight for the worst, and his sickness was progressing far faster than he'd expected. He was at most blind already. Only his years of experience kept him from falling in battle. His eyesight was already bad 3 years ago, and over the past years he's been training Naruto. He'd been using his Sharingan continuously. The action didn't do him any favors. It only continued killing his already bad eyesight. Considering that he was forced to fight some strong shinobi recently, it wasn't that much of a surprise that he could barely see. Naruto nodded. "It would be troubling if you became blind, but you will have to heal yourself the way other Uchihas do to avoid going blind. Your younger brother can wait. Peace matters much more." He paused for a moment. "I will work on your condition. I may be forced to take some measures that I would not do, but for everything goes smoothly." "You made a play that hand." Itachi was silent for a few moments. "That will be after things become worse, though I would approve if things did not turn into that way. Things were already worse, and he may be left with 1 or 2 battles." However, he wasn't going to tell that to Naruto. It would only make him worry. "I understand how you feel about this, but you should know that nothing can be kept hidden forever. You may think that no one will find out, but this is the shinobi world. You never know who is watching. No matter how hard you think you have hidden things, they will come out. I believe it is better for secrets to come out while you are alive, to do damage control rather than having them come out while you are dead." Naruto reasoned calmly. "I guess you are right," Itachi conceded, "but let us leave it as it is for now." Naruto nodded. "How goes removing Gaara's problem?" He had assured the Kazekage he would help him out to deal with the problem, but he could not get involved with things in public. He had allowed Itachi to negotiate things for him after collecting enough bounty. "It is well. Kaneki-san will be leaving Sunagakure to the land of grass, but he will leave his businesses there. He has promised never to bother Gaara again and assured me that he will be a good civilian." Itachi responded, revealing his successful mission. "It had not been that difficult. It would have proved a bit tricky if he had gone with Kisame, but things required that he do it silently without drawing out weapons." "Good," Naruto said. "Then I shall give Gaara the good news." "How long do you think you can work in the shadows without anyone knowing that you are connected to the United Nations alliance as well as your identity?" "I can keep everything hidden for some time. As long as I don't do anything rash, I will be able to keep my identity without anyone finding about it. It can only be revealed if one of us talks about it." The former member of the Akatsuki responded calmly. Again, Naruto nodded in acceptance of Itachi's response. "I don't like this, but we may have to face Jubi soon, perhaps after the UNA conference. I may have already gathered some valuable information at that time. It is better we deal with the problem now before anything becomes deep. Allowing a small problem to rise up may come back to haunt you in the near future." Itachi stated he believed that a problem was better solved before it got too big. The smaller it was, the easier it was to manage and remove, but when it was much bigger it caused much trouble and would not be easy to deal with. "I agree," Naruto said with a nod. "However, I will not stop anything, everything will continue while we deal with the threat. I have yet to discover what his goal is, but I will find out soon enough. Itachi nodded. He watched Naruto closely. The blonde was standing a few feet away from the posture gave away nothing about the blonde's thoughts. It was just the same as his tone and expression. He had trained him well. Still, Naruto was already good with masking his emotions. The blonde could pull off masks that no one could realize they were just masks. He was that good when it came to masks, but he had known the blonde more than enough to know when he had pulled off one of his masks. I will speak to you in a few days. I have to teleport around nations to drop the invitations to the conference next month. There is little time to organize things, but I will make it work. His eyes looked straight into Itachi's. He noticed that the Uchiha was watching him carefully, but he would not give anything away, because the man was looking straight at him. It would unnerve him, but he would continue as he'd been. He's been allowing his mask to drop off in these past days. You will have to find a better solution to send invitations to the nations who are members of the United Nations Alliance. You can't always invite them in person. That takes much more time and energy, and time will be something that you will not have to waste in the next months, Itachi stated calmly. If Naruto was going to do this, he would have to make sure that he has proper channels to send messages to his people rather than having to drop off the messages himself. I have been thinking about that over the past days. It is something that Koyuki brought up while I was talking to her. I've been making preparations on how to proceed with this. I know that I can't always be available to deliver invitations, and there should be people who work exactly for that. Every organization has to have its own messengers. Once the United Nations officially starts to operate, I will not have time to play messenger. Itachi did notice that Koyuki's name was said differently from the rest of his speech. He was sure that Naruto had not noticed it, and he was certain that someone else would not have noticed it, but he knew Naruto too well. How was your stay in the snow? Itachi watched Naruto like a predator, trying to discern any reaction that might give him anything, but he got nothing. There was not even a twitch of the blonde's muscles. Good, I managed to get all business done and rest a little. It was a response that gave away nothing on what Itachi was looking. Naruto had noticed that the Uchiha had another reason to question him about snow. He was just not going to say anything because he did not feel like it, and if Itachi wanted to know something, he knew that all he had to do was ask. The pressure will increase in the next weeks, but I will to adapt. A change of subject. Well, they had been talking about his matter before he decided to question about snow. Things are moving a little faster than you had thought. A few months ago you were not expecting things to turn out this way at this time, and even when you went back to Konoha after your training you were not expecting this phase to complete this quick. Itachi realized while looking straight at Naruto. It is nothing to worry about. I will just have to adapt to the workload and carry the weight with my shoulders. Naruto paused for a moment, gathering his thoughts. He looked at the light blue heavens. There was not a single cloud in the sky. Perhaps he could finish with the invitations before evening. He did know that some of the persons will have him sit with them to enjoy a conversation. You adapt well to different situations, Itachi said while still watching the blonde carefully. He was a lot different from when he had come here while the burden of killing was weighing him down. He had never asked the blonde how he had ended up solving the matter, but he was glad that it had been resolved nonetheless. It would not be good if Naruto ran the UNA with some burdens. My life has me forced to live with so many things troubling me. I have had to live with a smile on my face while everyone was glaring at me. It was not easy, but after more loneliness and pain I was able to get myself to handle burdens quite well. Naruto explained something that Itachi already knew, but this is a bit different. It is not pain and loneliness that you will have to face, Itachi said, narrowing his eyes closer towards the blonde to see his reaction about the fact that they were talking about his childhood. But Naruto gave away nothing. However, he did know that the blonde had handled all his emotions in a positive way, so he had nothing to worry about. I know, Naruto admitted, but I will handle it. I have people closer to me to share my burdens with me. A small smile flicked through Itachi's face for a second, but Naruto caught it. I'm glad that you understand that you cannot always handle everything by yourself. I once thought so too, but ultimately it leads to failure. Failure in this case is not acceptable. No, failure is the death of me. Naruto paused for a moment. After next month there will no longer be vacancies in positions and duties within the United Nations Alliance. I will make that most positions are filled during the conference and the rest after that. Once that is complete, I will not have to worry about everything other people will have to worry about. It. Do we have to worry about security? While he knew that Uzushiyogakure was the safest place, even safer than Konoha, he knew that everything was certain in the shinobi world. It would not be a bad thing to take some precautions, and people were always looking for opportunities to betray others. No, there should be no problem with external security. I have set up a barrier around the place that blocks anyone from teleporting within. The barrier contains my DNA, so it allows me to pass through without much trouble. While inside the island, I can use a jutsu that Konan taught me. She Said it was a jutsu Nagato used to keep everything in check within Amigakure. With the jutsu I can be aware of everything that happens within the island. Naruto explained lightly. Itachi nodded. I expected nothing less. How goes the recruiting steadily? Kisame is handling as we speak. Itachi responded calmly. Naruto nodded with a small smile on his face. I will take my leave. I have not set up appointments with any of the individuals I have to meet up with today, but it should not be too much of a hustle. Given my personal and professional relationship with them. He paused for a moment and took a few steps towards Itachi until he was closer to the Uchiha. It was not that he realized that he had been speaking a bit far away from the Uchiha. You should rest your eyes for now. You have been working hard. You should get some rest. Next month will be one hell of a month. I will need you. And then he was gone. Itachi shook his head. He tells me rest, yet he works a lot harder than I do, but it didn't really matter if he rested. His eyesight was already bad. Unknown location. It seems that my little pet has taken an interest in Naruto-kun. I do think this will become an obsession, Orochimaru said, reading the report Kabuto had given him. It was a wonder how the man hailed as a once-in-a-generation genius could so point out other people's obsessions, while he could not see that he too had been very much obsessed with the Sharingan. That he did not look at anything else. Kabuto would have pointed that out, but he chose keep his thoughts to himself. Why has he taken such an interest in Naruto, given that his first battle was against the Jinchuriki, and the fact that Naruto holds the strongest of the tailed beasts? My pet also has the combined chakra of all 9 tailed beasts. I can only guess that he sees an opponent in Naruto, but he does not sound keen to show his true power. No one even knows if he can control the power of the Kyuubi. There is not to mention what Naruto has been up to. With everything I filled the pet with, he should be quick to oppose Naruto-kun's plans. Orochimaru explained lightly. He did not care too much about this. He could allow the children to play, but he would never allow them to change the world. No, the world was for him to change, so he will keep messing with Naruto until he finally decides to reveal all his secrets, and then they will battle it out until one of them eventually dies. If it goes like that, it is going to be Madara and Hashirama again, Kabuto said, knowing some history between those two legendary shinobis. Most people did not bother to look into the past because it did not interest them, but he was interested in everything he found curious. Orochimaru nodded. Still, I would not have thought that he would be brave enough to attack Konoha like that. Well, he is indeed powerful and seems to fear nothing. You did twist things to go that way. I would not have expected anything less from him, but it also appears that he is making a name for himself. Konoha will be hunting him down and place him in their bingo books. Kabuto stated he had contacts within Konoha, so he knew most things that happened within the village. He had worked for Root before infiltrating the village. To gather information was not a task for him that I have. Orochimaru nodded, grinning. I will just have to see how my pet does when going against Konoha. He will prove to be most useful to me. If he keeps going like this, he may remove all my enemies. The snake Sannin stated, never losing his grin at the thought of having his enemies removed for him by his pet, and he could then clean the mess afterwards. You are still intending to use him? Kabuto was surprised. The last encounter with the pet had not gone so well. Orochimaru was almost killed while he was trying to control the pet, and how was he going to try to do it again if it failed the last time? Yes, I cannot all my efforts in creating that thing be in vain. I will have to reap from my efforts, Orochimaru stated, revealing an even wider green. It also seems that Naruto-kun has also been busy. Indeed he has. It is quite smart for him to create something like this, but if this thing does succeed, the world will not be very safe for us, Kabuto said, noting that it was not a good thing for the United Nations Alliance to go ahead. They sought to eliminate all that was evil, and they were categorized along those lines. It was not that he feared anything. No, with Orochimaru kicking, well, there was nothing to be afraid of. It will never succeed. Not in this world. Sunagakure. The office always has a sense of peace flowing through the walls. Even the atmosphere was welcoming, but Naruto knew that not everyone felt that way. People had different perceptions, but everyone who had a good perception and was not screwed up in their way of thinking could see what he saw and feel what he felt. Perhaps some may feel threatened because of the still lingering fear of the Kazekage. People could not be forced to change. He knew that. He looked at the Kazekage. Nothing had changed with him. Not that he had expected any change from his fellow Jinchuriki. The posture was in its always unreadable form, and the expression seemed impassive as always. It also seemed that a smile had never graced the lips of the man, but that was not the truth. Gaara could smile. He just reserved his smiles for special moments. I would have thought that you would be taking some time off after recent events, Gaara said, looking straight at Naruto. Of course, Tsunade had informed every one of her allies of what had happened to the village so that they could be on lookout for the man who had ruined Naruto's birthday. Since he had gotten word that the blonde had been put in the hospital because of the attack, he had thought that the blonde would be resting. There's much work to do, Naruto responded. He took a seat. He had been standing still since he arrived in the office. I was not badly injured anyway, and I am not unlike most people. Kyuubi's chakra always takes care of any Wound I suffer, the only problem is that it cannot deal with his mental stress. Gaara nodded, but overusing those abilities will only put your body under a lot of stress. You know that regardless of how much you heal there will always be a limit to how much the body can take. You have said it yourself, the chakra does not solve mental problems, and that is my worry. Naruto shrugged. I know that I am not some careless child. He paused for a moment. I do give my mind the rest that is required. Meditation also helps to relax everything within the body. I have become adept to it since the toads introduced it to me. I was not suggesting that you are a careless child, I was merely making a statement. Naruto became silent for a few moments. Well, he could give this round to Gaara, and so he changed the subject. Shall we get to business? Then Gaara nodded, looking at Naruto carefully. He noticed that the blonde conceded his point, and chose to focus on the serious matters, but it was not that the matter he was talking about was not serious, it was serious. It could be the difference between success and failure. He was just glad that the blonde did not appear to be arrogant enough to shrug off any advice he was given. You cannot always know everything within the world. There were bound to be things that will miss you. What news have you brought me then? Gaara asked, never leaving the fixed gaze on Naruto. He could only guess that the blonde had come here to bring him some news. It was mostly the case, but then again this could be different since he could not quite read everything. Naruto did. Your problem with the rich man has been solved. I was able to raise enough funds to pay him off and had him convinced to stay away from Sunagakure without taking his businesses with him. Naruto revealed, handing Gaara a file with a few pages. He should come to you in the next few days. Gaara was quiet for a few moments as he looked at the file before looking back at Naruto. How did you manage to get the money? He asked a curious question. He liked to think that his status was higher than Naruto's. This will change though, but he was a Kage and Naruto was none of that, yet he was able to raise millions of Ryo that he could not find. I am one who seeks peace and will soon be heading the largest organization in the elemental nations. Do you not think that I have connections around the nations? It was not answering the question, but this was the wise way to avoid the question. I know all that, Gaara responded calmly, but that does not answer my question. Of course he was not going to let it go so easily. This matter concerned Sunagakure greatly, and he had sworn to protect this village. He would not do anything that could lead his people to pain. If he knew of it, he may trust Naruto, but that did not mean he would not ask questions about some matters. Naruto sighed, realizing that he would have to answer the question. Well, a stronger bond and friendship was built in honesty. Bounty, someone was collecting them for me. I got some of the money from my inheritance and some from the UNA. While he was able to make small withdrawals, he could not make larger withdrawals for the money in Uchiha, but he was getting close to fixing the seal. Your inheritance, he could understand. Bounty villages were willing to pay a lot of money for their wanted criminals, but dealing with such was dangerous and required much time and focus. But it had not been that long for Naruto to collect the millions that his problem wanted. The United Nations Alliance had to have money. Who could start such an organization without the funds to run it? My parents left me some funds. I would not call it a large sum of money, but it was a sizable amount of money that I had no use for. I thought it would be best if I made use for it on something useful, Naruto said calmly. He watched Gaara's reaction to his response with a critical eye, but he got little from the Kage. How much did you end up paying? Gaara asked. No, he sort of demanded in a calm tone. It was obvious to Naruto that the Kazekage was very curious about his answer and would not accept any answer other than the truth. It was not that Naruto had planned to lie to Gaara. He would not have just told the Jinchuriki how much he had paid. Close to 400 million Ryo, Naruto responded. After a few moments, the combined heads of Sasori and Deidara had fetched about 125 million Ryo. Despite the fact that Sasori belonged to Uchiha Itachi had not received the bounty from the village, he went elsewhere. It was also not like he was not going to get his money back. He would get his money back, all of it, and soon. That much. He did not have such money. Only rich people had that sort of money, and daimyos could have that kind of money. They were the government after all, but he did not. Sunagakure might have that money, but he did not have it. How am I going to pay you back? Naruto merely smiled. Don't worry about it. I am not giving away his charity. We can just say it was a mission from the United Nations Alliance. One of my missions is to help save and rescue. After all, Gaara shook his head. Number 400 mil Ryo is a lot of money, my friend. I will one day pay you back. If I can't get the money, I will offer you something else, the Kazekage said in a promising tone. Surely he could not just say thank you and leave it like that. He would have to thank the blonde. In some ways it was nothing unexpected. Well, he had tried, but from the look and tone of Gaara told him that convincing him otherwise was not going to happen. He had expected something like this, but he did not rule out trying to persuade the Kage to think otherwise. He tried and failed. I wonder why people can't just take help without feeling that they also need to give out something in return. That is just our nature as humans. Giving back makes us feel good, and that makes us even things. No one wants to feel like they owe someone something, Gaara responded. Naruto had not realized that he had said those words aloud, but he responded nonetheless. Can a friend do Something good for a friend, Hikangara said, but it depends on the deed done. There are just some things you cannot simply just take. In this case, I can't have you using 400 million Ryo for my cause without paying you back. It is the right thing to do. Naruto was quiet for a few moments before he nodded. I have also come here to give you this, he said, handing Gaara an envelope. What is it? The Kazekage did not open the envelope. He had been given since the blonde was here. He figured he would explain everything to him. It is a letter of invitation to the first conference and official launch of the United Nations Alliance. It will be held in Uchiha from the 1st till the 2nd next month. This is a little soon. There are less than 20 days before those dates, Gaara said, looking thoughtful. I know, but it is necessary for the United Nations to start operating fully. I could not find a better date than this. I have to start everything before the end of the year. I want it to be possible that everything I have planned to start operating by January, Naruto explained in a tone filled with nothing but determination in seeing his dream progress. I understand that. Are you inviting everyone? I am inviting everyone who is a member of the United Nations. Other villages will just have to hear from rumors, and I assure you that no one who is uninvited will get into the conference hall, Naruto said confidently. He did not want spectators in the meeting. He wanted people who will be taking part in everything that will be going on in the island. Do you think that everyone will get there in time? Gaara asked. Some will have their schedules to look after, and he doubted that some would leave their activities for the event. Uchiha also required transportation on the sea. Ships were not fast enough in shinobi standards. I will teleport anyone who cannot make it in time. Once the event starts, the island will be in lockdown. No one will go in or out. This will mean that there will be no late arrivals. Anyone who does not make it before the conference starts will not get in. However, if I do manage to tune security details, I may change that, he said. But as it stood, he was to put the island in lockdown. Gaara shook his head. You are going far with security. I don't want anyone to ruin anything, and I want everyone to be safe. It would not do well for his conscience if people got hurt under his watch. Is there anything else? Further details are inside the letter of invitation, Naruto said, standing up from where he sat. I will return should there be any changes, and then he was gone. Gaara sighed before speaking. Temari, you should not eavesdrop on other people's conversations, the Jinchuriki said, making his sister appear in the office. He knew she had been listening on as he talked with Naruto. He was also positive that the blonde had also sensed, but just ignored it. Sorry, I just couldn't help myself, Temari apologized, but Gaara just shrugged. Gather the council members for me. Wind capital. Miyuki groaned as she looked through her budgets. It was becoming much of a trouble for her to keep up with all her work. She had thought that she could handle all the work she had requested. She was doing some of the work that her father did not even do. When it came to finances, she wanted to keep it tight. She did not want anyone to bleed her country dry because she was ignorant. Her father had her taught by the best teachers in the art of finances. She could track all the money that came into the Wind country. It was best that she handle everything herself first before handing the task to someone. She wanted to audit the financial statements to ensure that no one in her council was stealing cash for his own personal uses. If she found that anyone was stealing, there would be hell to pay. She would make the man pay what he had stolen. If he could not pay back all the money, then he had to pay some of it. Of course, she would not make innocents suffer for their father's sins. She was not that kind of a person. Perhaps her father would do that, especially when the man did not deal well with betrayal. Her father would not hesitate to order a massacre to the family of anyone who betrays him. He was ruthless and somewhat greedy. He liked his money and rarely gave it away. Despite all that, he was a good father. Even with all his faults, she could not have wished for a better father. He had raised her well, even when he had been disappointed that he did not get a boy to succeed him. He ensured that she was trained to succeed him. Maybe I should have delegated some of my work to my assistants while I deal with this, she muttered to herself. Controlling everything in finances called for a critical eye and complete focus. A single zero could ruin her whole report. She had to check everything to detail. The man that had been checking things for her father did sloppy work. She had to sort through his work before she could even start with her own. There was a knock on her door that snapped her out of her thoughts. Come in, she said, leaning back to her chair. It was her housekeeper. What is it, Yoshino-san? You have a guest at home. I believe it is that young blonde lad from Konoha. He had just suddenly appeared in the living room. She had been shocked because she did not see such things. He gave me quite a fright when he appeared. Young blonde lad from Konoha. That had to be Naruto. There was no one else who was from Konoha who would just suddenly appear in her living quarters. She smiled, wondering why he would be here. She had not seen him in about a few days now. Have one of the guards bring him here, she ordered. Of course. Yoshino bowed as she turned around to leave, but before she could leave the office, Naruto entered. Did I not tell you to wait for me to return? You did, but I decided that my schedule could not adhere to that, Naruto responded coolly. I don't mean to be rude, Yoshino-san. The woman merely shrugged and walked away from the office. Miyuki smiled at Naruto, who returned the smile. Lovely to see you again, Naruto. Likewise, Naruto responded, taking a seat. He sighed as he sat down. Delivering invitations like this was really wearing him down. He had talked with most of the members by now, If he completes this one he would be left with Koyuki and Mei had already visited other small villages to deliver the message. Time was not moving slow either. He would end up sleeping late as it appeared. You look tired. Miyuki noted the blonde was not even trying to hide his tiredness. She felt a bit happy that he felt comfortable before her to do something like that. He mostly kept everything unreadable when around other people, but here he was not even hiding his state of mind. I have been talking and teleporting to different offices all day, and some people took much time to persuade, while some requested that I do some things for them. I have yet to rest nor eat anything since morning, the blonde revealed in a bit worn out tone. Perhaps you should rest for now and I will treat you to dinner later, she suggested with a small smile. I am afraid I will have to pass that. I still have two more people to see before the day ends, Naruto said quietly. Perhaps I may come back the day after tomorrow. He had to rest tomorrow and see other things. Miyuki nodded. Still, you should not work yourself to death. Work overload does not do anyone any good. It is not good, especially to your mental state. I have been told something like that recently, and not just by one person, Naruto said, heaving a sigh. It was like everyone he went to was telling him the same thing. Tsunade and Jiraiya had told him the same thing. Was he really overworking himself that hard? His body was certainly not complaining that much. It seems that you have people who care for you mental well-being, Miyuki responded. If she was not the only one to say so, it meant that the blonde had other people who were concerned for him. She was speaking from experience. She had seen what overworking without rest does to the body. She had seen her father slumped in bed several times. Naruto only nodded in response. Who else do you have to visit? The Snow Country daimyo and the Mizukage, Naruto responded, watching the expression of Miyuki's face carefully. For a second her expression became blank before her cheery mask returning again. You are surrounded by women everywhere, she muttered. I have noticed, Naruto said. Well, anyway, take this. He handed her the same envelope he had been giving everyone else. I won't explain anything at the moment. Read it so you can be aware. When I return in a day or two I will explain everything to you. So you are leaving? Naruto nodded. Stay safe, Miyuki. I will visit you soon. The blonde breathed out before disappearing in a yellow flash. I need a boyfriend, Miyuki said after the blonde had disappeared. Really, when she goes home after work she was not going to find anyone waiting for her. She would sleep alone in her huge bed. Even though she would not admit it to anyone, she was feeling a bit lonely. Kirigakure, we have apprehended the culprit, Mei-sama, Ao reported to the Mizukage as he entered her office. He had been chasing a shinobi they had caught trying to infiltrate the village. He had only been able to spot the shinobi because of his Byakugan. Without the Jujutsu he would not have found the man. Is he still in a good condition? Mei asked in a firm tone. Some did not like being caught. To avoid such things they went on to fight their pursuers. She was not looking forward to interrogate someone who could not speak. The man was not in a good condition to speak, and then interrogating him would prove useless. Yes, Ao responded with a firm nod, but there were some complications. He sounded not too sure about saying this one. It was like if he said it out loud the Godame Mizukage would have him executed. What Ao was quiet for a few moments. He chose his next words carefully. He tried to kill himself once he saw that he could not outrun us, but I was able to see through it quickly. However, he nearly tore through his vocal cord. Mei nodded. As long as he can speak there should be no problem, the Mizukage said. She did not care about much the man as long as he could tell her what he wanted from her village. She was okay. If he did not give him anything then she would be unhappy. It seems like he won't be able to give us anything. Before I came here I tried cracking him, but it appears that he was trained for this kind of situations, Ao said, a bit embarrassed about his failure to get anything from the man he had caught. This was a surprise to the Mizukage. Were you able to ascertain where he comes from? As far as what he was wearing, he is from Sunagakure, but when we first saw him he was wearing a mask. He brought out the mask. It was just blank white. Do you recognize it? Mei-sama, the woman nodded. According to the intel Naruto gave me, this mask belongs to Danzo's root. Naruto had warned her about them. He had told her that the man did not trust anyone and was most likely going to send Root in her village to mess things up or doing something along the lines in support of that. The blonde had given her a file she would use to define the Root agents. Why would Danzo send his Root to infiltrate our village? Aren't we allies of Konoha? Is this not an act of betrayal? If it was betrayal he would never forgive it. He would never allow anyone to take advantage of Kiri's weakened state. According to Naruto, Root is not in the control of the Hokage, but under Danzo. He did not specify what they did exactly, but Naruto won't turn against me. He told me that Konoha might be our allies, but Danzo was not. Mei explained lightly. This was going to prove to be too troublesome. She had not thought that the man would do something like this using Suna's shinobi uniform was just made to put the blame on it. Regardless, it is still from Konoha. Perhaps aligning with them was not the best choice. How can we trust the Hokage if she cannot control a military force that is within her village, who is to say that tomorrow they won't come and attempt to assassinate you without the Hokage knowing? Ao put out a few questions displaying his worry. Shut up, Ao. Mei said quickly. We will deal with this quickly. The Hokage has to be informed about it though, however we cannot allow such things to. She trailed off when a flash of yellow appeared in her office. The flash revealed Naruto. Ao had been ready to protect his Kage should there be a need. But Mei waved him off. Hello, Chairwoman Ao-san. Naruto greeted the two with a small smile. Ao merely settled for a nod while Mei spoke. Hello, President. What brings you here at this time? The Mizukage said, smiling at the blonde. It was like this when they spoke. Despite neither having officially assumed their roles within the United Nations, they called each other by their titles. Mei was more than willing to tag along with the role play. It was also somewhat good doing it. United Nations Alliance. Naruto responded calmly. That was his business here. He did not come here for Konoha or anything. He came here to discuss the plans of the UNA with his chairwoman. Mei nodded. Ao, leave us. The man did not need to be told twice. Do we have to talk now? I have been having a rather tiring day, the Mizukage said, leaning back to her chair. She motioned for Naruto to take a seat. The blonde did so calmly. I have to talk with you today, but I will also return in the next 4 or 5 days. Naruto responded. His day was similar to Mei's. It had not been an easy day, but sometimes one just had to endure for other things to succeed or progress. Alright, Mei resigned. I want you to look at some of the proposals I have set up that will be proposed during the first conference next month. I have already drawn up everything, but I need your insight on these things. Naruto took out a file and handed it to the Mizukage. You don't rest, Mei said, taking the file. I will look at this later on. I have some business to attend today, and I believe this will need much time. Naruto nodded. There is no problem in that. On another note, I was planning on turning one of the islands that surround the water country into a prison facility for the United Nations Alliance. A prison, yes. With that I have in mind, the UNA will be more involved in its members' matters, but that does not mean that we control everything. No, we will be merely looking out for our members, and that means arresting everyone that is proved to wish harm for our members. Naruto explained lightly. You wish for the UNA police force to handle such matters. This means that should a prison be established, anyone found guilty by the first court will be sentenced to the prison. Naruto nodded. Facilitating things through courts ensures that everyone is given an opportunity to prove themselves as innocent. A prison ensures that not everyone is killed because of trivial matters. Jail time reduces the number of people killed each day. This will in turn reduce the number of deaths and gives one an opportunity to change. Mei smiled at Naruto. I like the idea, but such a project will demand much in terms of resources, and it will take some time to build a secure facility. I have put a thought into that, and I have discovered that this project is not impossible. We can make it happen, but it needs full cooperation of our members. If our members are not willing to cooperate, then we cannot make it happen. Combined efforts of a group can achieve many things. Mei said a little in thought. I like what you have thought. Now tell me more about it before I excuse myself to attend other matters. She would have to tell him about the other matter, but first thing she needed to get some answers. Snow Country. Koyoki smiled happily. As soon as she got home from her office, she found her blonde lying in her couch looking as though he was very tired. This is a wonderful surprise. I can find myself coming back home to see that face every day, she said, smiling at him. Naruto looked at her with a smile of his own. Then I would have to be your wife if it has to happen like that, he responded calmly as she woman sat across him on another couch. I am sure you would have no problems with that. It would not be so bad to be the wife of me. I am a famous actress after all. Koyoki stated. She was also a beautiful woman. Any man would want the chance. If being with her, it was a pity that none of them could get their hands on her. She was reserved for one man only. How do you come up with that? Naruto asked quietly. He certainly would mind being the wife instead of being the husband. He was a man, therefore should be the one to wear pants. Perhaps if he was a civilian it would not be much of a matter, but he was a shinobi. This made him much of a man than most civilians. Just a thought, the leader of the Snow Country stated with a small shrug of her shoulders. I like being in charge, and besides you are not so manly to wear the pants. Naruto stated. You are much more feminine despite your position. Well, you can get one of those fanatic followers of yours to be your wives. The woman had fans all over the world, and some men sort of like worshipped her for her beauty. Even some shinobi liked her very much. Hey, I can be manly, Koyoki said, standing up. She did a manly pose and looked at Naruto with a stern look. Woman, get me food, I am hungry. Naruto blinked before he laughed. What was very much amusing was her tone. It was still feminine, which was much to Naruto's amusement. No, really, you should stick with being a woman, but when you do use that daimyo tone it becomes another story. Koyoki pouted a little before settling down. Perhaps I will do just that, she said, folding her hands across her chest. Then you are my last stop. I will talk business with you later. Your housekeeper is preparing something to eat. We will talk after we eat. Naruto responded. You are staying here for the night? She sounded a little excited about the thought. Yes, my body is a little tired. I need to rest and to relax my body. You Hot springs are quite good for relieving tensions. Naruto responded. Don't get any ideas. What ideas? Koyoki asked, giving Naruto an innocent look on her face. By the look on her face he could tell that she was having some funny ideas. He was certainly not up for any of her games. He really just wanted to rest. The blonde shook his head. You are beyond help. He stood up. The boss is at the hot spring, relieving some muscle stress. With that the blonde disappeared in a small cloud of smoke. Damn it, Koyoki stood. Those damn clones of his. Well, it can't be helped. I will go and join him whether he likes it not. I do not think he will put much of a fight though, especially since he knows he can't win later. Naruto, Koyoki called the blonde, who was busy eating in silence. Have you been with another woman recently? Naruto stopped eating and looked at the snow princess blankly. Say what? Last time when you came here you were a bit different. You now won't even allow me to take a peek. This can only happen if you have someone in your sights. The princess reason, looking straight at the blonde. Is that the woman intuition telling, giving you such a conclusion? Naruto asked with a raised brow. The question itself was a surprise to him. To think that the woman would ask with such a straight face. Just thinking about it makes him shake his head. Yes, Koyoki responded with a firm nod. Now are you going to answer my question or not? The look on her face told Naruto that he only had one option in the matter. Answer the question. The woman wasn't going to back down. What am I to you, princess? Naruto responded with a question of his own, his eyes going back to his food. A good friend and somewhat of my personal savior. Koyoki responded without even so much as blinking. She didn't need to think to offer her response. It was right in her lips, ready to be dished out when the opportunity presented itself. Then don't you think that there should be something a friend can't tell you? Naruto, Koyoki started calmly. You spent nearly a month under my roof eating my food, and I treated you like a prince the whole time. I even allowed you to defile me. Naruto rolled his eyes at those words. It was more like she defiled him. Now you are tired again. You've rested in my hot spring and are eating my food under my roof, and you are gone be sleeping in my bed. I feel like I'm being used here. Naruto sighed. I've forgotten really close with the wind daimyo. She is a very good person, and I do enjoy my time with her. He smiled fondly in thought, but I've not done anything with her. If that is what you are asking, I still don't see what would be the problem if I had. You and I are not dating anyway. Koyoki nodded. Do you like her? You spoke about her last time you were here, and I can't help but think. Naruto looked at the woman blankly for a few moments before shaking his head. I like her despite not being a shinobi. Both my world and hers are connected, which makes things easy for me to construct a conversation with her when I'm with her. It is like I enter this new world that is a mixture of hers and mine. She is warming, and I often find my mask slipping when I'm with her. Are you in love with her? I never said anything about love. Naruto responded. Well, he wouldn't mind to date her. His life was a bit lonely after all, and what she offered was something that Itachi didn't. Koyoki shook her head. Have you considered my proposal? Yes, Naruto responded quietly, and I don't know what to do. I'm not asking you to have any responsibilities with me, Naruto. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. It will be just for political reasons and will help get that bastard of a prince out of my sight. And besides, this will help your position as leader of the UN. I'm an important public figure, and this will only improve your image as well as strengthen your organization. You have nothing to lose. And all these. Jiraiya would tell him to go for it. For obvious reasons, she did put in a good argument, but he didn't know what to do about this matter. He was willing to do anything that he saw as right to help the UN succeed, and what Koyoki was suggesting would only help him strengthen his own image. But I will give you my answer after the conference, Naruto finally said. I'm hoping for a positive response. Koyoki sighed. Things aren't looking good for me at this moment. I know despite the princess being a popular figure, things weren't going well for her. Her country was split between two opinions. There are those who thought she was the rightful ruler of the country, and there were those who agreed to the former, but thought that she wasn't cut out for it. Things were looking tough as there was a man who was fueling things up by saying that Koyoki was a weak woman who shouldn't lead their country. Things weren't helped by the fact that relationships with other lands were deteriorating because the princess was refusing marriage proposals from surrounding villages. It came at a cost, as some were willing to cut off treaties because of rejection. The loss of treaties didn't do well for the snow. The country was rich, so at this moment it wasn't showing any signs of weakening, but given time things would turn into another corner. If you know why are you making things hard for me? I've been studying the matter, looking for alternatives. Naruto responded calmly. If you've studied this matter, you must have realized that I don't have much time left, and there are only two alternatives for me: get married to the perverts who only want to defile my body, or resign. However, with your current position in Konoha and the UN, you offer me a third alternative, which I am happy to accept. You are the only one I can trust, Naruto. Of all the other men who can help me out, you are the only one I'm comfortably with, and I Know that you won't turn on me and force me to do things I don't want to do. Can you imagine what would be done to me if I was forced to marry a man who only wanted my power and my body? Can you imagine how I can be used? Can you imagine what would happen to me?" The princess gave Naruto a sad look that was mixed with some seriousness. Naruto almost laughed dryly. At this situation he found himself. He knew well what this woman was doing. Yes, the emotional game was played all too well. The question left for Naruto was whether he could stomach all the thoughts Koyuki had put in him, or whether he was going to play the hero. Time skip. Konan looked from her window down the reigning village of Amigakure. For the past years she has been leading this village, continuing to maintain the peace that Nagato had created, yet someone was here trying to take away all the peace. She could not allow anything to happen to this village. It was Yahiko's dream for peace to reign in this place, and Nagato brought it a pity. He also died. However, she was left to inherit leadership of the village. True, the path to leadership of this village had come through bloodshed. Yes, their rebellion to Hanzo's reign had caused so many shinobi to die. She was not crying about it. No, she was happy that their sacrifices had brought this much peace to this land. So far she had done it. She had continued to lead Amigakure towards lasting peace. Nagato's dream was not just to bring peace to aim no for the shinobi world. When the great villages plan to do battle, the smaller villages are always caught in the crossfire and turned into battlegrounds. Amigakure has not been an exception to this. This village has been tarnished before by the war between the great villages, but now she would not allow the story to repeat. She hoped to help bring peace to the shinobi world, a world full of malice and hatred. Naruto was brining in a new idea. His idea was in some way similar to how the Akatsuki started when Yahiko was just alive. Their organization fought for peace and was welcomed by everyone. People knew them as the good people, and members who also wished for peace joined them in numbers. She wondered though if Naruto's organization would become crippled and turn like how Akatsuki turned. They had been betrayed, and the result weighed on them much more than they would have thought. Nagato tried to continue on the same path, but in the end things changed. While she held no grudge against anyone, she was not going to play the good girl for others to walk on her. After years of being manipulated by Obito, Nagato had opened his eyes to see the reality. He realized that he was just being a pot used to cook a fresh piece of red meat, and in the end he was not going to taste any of it. It took the realization for him to stand up on his feet and stop trying to follow someone from behind. He tried standing on his own feet, not just for sake of it, but to regain control over the organization they had built. Of course, Obito was not going to allow things to continue as they were. When Nagato refused to do anything he wanted for the other to fulfill his plans, the other had to die. Nagato had fought Obito, and she delivered the killing blow. Years of battles and shouldering so much pain that would cripple anyone. Her friend no longer wished to continue on with his life. The battle with Obito had left him seriously wounded, but she believed that they could have done something if Nagato really wanted to continue with his life. She believed that her friend could have survived and would have been alive with her in this day. A part of her believed that Nagato just wanted her to continue with their stories. She hoped she would carry both Yahiko and Nagato's stories and bring them to a conclusion. Konan looked back inside her tower, the large empty hall that she always liked to visit whenever she felt the need to oversee the village. With her eyes, Naruto and Itachi had just appeared in her presence, the latter wearing his usual mask. "I was beginning to think that you were no longer going to come," Konan stated emotionlessly as she turned her gaze back down at the streets of Amigakure. While she was expecting the two to visit her, she wouldn't have been sad if they didn't appear. Both Naruto and Itachi didn't say a word for the seconds they spent walking up to her. Naruto took her left-hand side and leaned at wall with eyes fixed down on the streets, and Itachi took her right side. He merely stood still beside her and narrowed his eyes where the other four eyes were looking. "I was caught up with other things in Konoha, and Itachi had to ditch Kisame so that he didn't force his way here," Naruto responded. For both he and his former sensei Konan nodded in acceptance. "How do we do this then?" "Naruto and I will handle them. You should stay here with your men and alert to ensure that there are no surprises. We don't fully know what will happen while we engage the enemy," Itachi responded flatly. "Between the two of us, the army that is heading towards this place is not that frightening. We can deal with it without risking too much of your forces," Naruto added. After Itachi, "I would like to have this done without any causality in your part." It felt like she was with a different Nagato and Yahiko, but they did not always have her stay out of the battlefield. She always joined them whenever they fought, and here she was. These two were going to do the fighting for her. They were not allowing her to engage the enemy. "My power will be useful if I go with you. I can't just sit here and wait for something to happen. Besides, I have more battle experience than the two of you." To her, Naruto was a child and Itachi would be like a little brother. It was not that she saw them in that way, no, just their age differences would pen things to be in that form, but she viewed them highly. "That may be so, but this is something that we must do. More importantly, this is something that I must do. The world has yet to know of me for my abilities, though I'm going to end up killing other humans today. This will be a good for my image in the near future. Naruto didn't really care about how it sounded. Perhaps if he was speaking to someone else he would have been worried about someone misinterpreting his words, but it was just Itachi and Konan. The two would understand him. It wasn't the time for naivety to rule over his decisions. The hard choices had to be made, and he was ready to make those as long as it was still within the boundaries of what he deemed to be right. So you want to do this because you wish to use the battle as a platform to advertise your strength. Konan summarized pretty much what Naruto had just said. Yes, Naruto responded without so much as skipping a heartbeat. This just showed that he knew what he was doing. And talking about you can put it in many other ways, but I'm merely taking advantage of the situation. Regardless of how you put it or other people will view it, the fact is that we cannot allow what Inoki is planning to happen. Konan was not complaining about anything. It was fine, even though he wanted to leave her out of the battle that was surely going to take place. This would serve well to determine the strength of the blonde. Itachi had much praise in him, and yet she had truly never been able to gauge his full strength. The feeling he gave wasn't that of a powerful shinobi, but then again he could be masking it. We have yet to discuss how this will affect you in your relationship with Konoha, though the sand named Uchiha has no plans to come after you for revenge. If you annihilate his army, it will not make you look any good before his eyes. No doubt he will send a message to Konoha about this, since he won't be happy. You have no known allegiances with Amigakure, and so does Konoha. Konan said, eyeing Naruto at the corner of her eye. Itachi took Naruto's silence to speak. You didn't tell the 5th Hokage about this, did you? He asked, keeping his tone unreadable. Konan had suspected as much, given that Iwagakure and Konohagakure did not particularly like each other. This was surely going to cause a storm with the leaders of the latter village. This was such the world they lived in. Even if Naruto was helping out, it was going to be seen as wrong for him to help out, given who his opponents were. It no longer mattered if you were just helping. No help was only to be offered to allies. She suspected that though Naruto was taking advantage of this situation to advertise his strength, he was doing this because he was her ally. Both Amigakure and Konoha may be part of the UNA, they were still no friends. She suspected that even though Konoha had joined the village, was not a full member of the alliance. It may be just that they are still putting Naruto's organization on a trial run. If that was indeed the case, as she suspected, then they were not going to be pleased about this. It still didn't mean she was going to stop Naruto from doing what he wanted. Not at all. He must know the consequences of what he was planning to do. If not, then she would do well to remind him and ensure that he understood it well. I didn't tell them. However, Jiraiya is much aware of the army that is marching towards here. Naruto responded after some silence had settled, and I do wonder why he seemed calm about it. Perhaps he trusted that Amigakure was strong enough to deal with its problems. It is not far from the truth, though. He mused quietly. What do you hope to gain by this? I know that you would have told them if you did not have any other reasons. Itachi questioned, his gaze fixed on the blonde beside Konan. If I had told them, Tsunade would have barred me from coming here, knowing that it would only cause tensions. I don't think she would have cared if I told her I was doing it for the UNA, not as a shinobi of Konoha. Naruto responded calmly. Still, it was not the reason. He did not tell the blonde Hokage that he was coming here. Even if she had barred you from coming here, you would have left Konoha nonetheless. Nothing less than being tied down in Umbu holding cells would have stopped you from coming here if you wanted to. Itachi stated flatly. If Naruto wanted to do something, he would do it. When the blonde had set his mind on doing something, nothing less than breaking both his legs was going to stop him from doing what he felt was the right thing. I gave back my Konoha Itachi because I knew that there was going to be a time where I would travel to lands that Konoha would not allow. If that happened, it would put me at odds with the leadership of the village. I may be a Jinchuriki and given some responsibilities, but I am not irreplaceable to many. It is in this case that I will test Konoha's trust in me, Naruto explained in a firm tone. Konoha has given you many responsibilities, Naruto. Why do you still wish to test its trust in you? Itachi questioned, his tone just as firm as Naruto's. There was also the fact that Tsunade and Jiraiya trusted him with everything, which should be enough. You are thinking that because I have Tsunade it should be enough. However, I think often you forget that what Konoha's people and what Tsunade thinks about me are two different things. Tsunade is also a Hokage. Now tell me, if a situation arises and she is forced to choose between saving my life and thousands of Konoha's people who dislike me for that matter, what would she do as a leader who has sworn to protect the people she leads? Naruto fixed Itachi a daring look. Naruto made sense, and the logical decision for Tsunade to take would be save the lives of many than one. Before he could say his counter, Naruto spoke again. Even if she does choose my life over thousands, the remaining thousands will only grow to resent me even more. I'm already hated for containing the Kyuubi. What would stop them for hating me even more if I become the reason thousands died? Naruto looked outside the tower again. Have you really lost faith in the people of Konoha? Itachi could only ask in a quiet tone. Naruto shook his head. I'm just being realistic. I still have faith that people can change. If I had lost all my faith in them, then my faith in the Kages to work together towards peace would be questionable. Itachi Could only nod. What more reason do you have in doing this? I want to see those that I can trust in Konoha, or I know that I can count on Tsunade and Jiraiya, but I don't know about the rest of the leaders. This will also test Konoha's standing in all these. I want to see if they will become a problem that will stop me from doing what I must. This will also send a message to those who are members of the UNA. Naruto responded in the same firm tone he had used earlier. Konan could only nod in agreement to his last words. The message to the other UNA members would be that Naruto would always be there to help regardless of what he was facing. He was planning to fight an army with just Itachi. The message was going to be very clear. If Konoha tries stopping you on some of the things must do, what will you do? Itachi questioned something that Konan had missed from Naruto's words. You have the answer to that, Itachi. Itachi knew what the answer was. He prayed that it didn't come to that. Yes, given that Naruto has already given back his forehead protector, Itachi could draw out that the blonde would leave Konoha to pursue his dream. Seeing that the spark between the two was over, Konan raised her own question. What do you think Inoki plans to achieve with this attack? The army is too small to conquer a village like Amigakure, and I don't believe that Tsuchikage is arrogant enough to believe that his army will defeat Aim's defenses. Itachi mused silently. It could be that he wishes to test Aim's military power. Naruto started over the past years. This village's inner workings have been hidden from other villages because Nagato did not wish for anyone to know where Akatsuki was based. This means that no one outside this village can give a clear estimate on the power of Aim. Now sending his granddaughter tells me that the shinobi she is leading are very capable. With her leading the army, it guarantees that he will get a clear indication on the strength of this village. Konan nodded and spoke. However, if you and Itachi engage them, they will gain nothing. In fact, it will be you will get valuable data on Iwa's forces. The older woman looked at Naruto carefully. But that is just what you want, isn't it? Naruto didn't deny it. We should be leaving. Itachi, my clone, has informed me that they will soon arrive at the spot. We should head there now and take some time to relax. All these talk has made me tense. Itachi nodded. Then we will continue when we return. With that said by the Uchiha, Naruto walked towards him and placed his right hand on his shoulder before they disappeared in a flash of yellow. Konan sighed after the two had disappeared. After this, her respect of Naruto would surely go up a few stairs. Naruto and Itachi was sitting on a rock just beside Naruto. The blonde was also sitting on a rock. The rumble he was sitting on was a little smaller than Itachi's. This gave the Uchiha more height than Naruto. Their surrounding was a barren field with a few rumbles lying on the ground. The sight of the environment was a clear indication that a great battle had once taken place. Naruto was wearing a standard Konoha Umbu gear metal plate on his chest, around his wrist, and the sword of the Thunder God strapped on his back. He wore no metal plate on his forehead, allowing his hair to fall loosely a little above him. Itachi was wearing the same black gear. Adding to the attire, Itachi wore a white mask that did not even reveal his eyes. A small blade was strapped careful on his back. The attire seemed to fit him well. It was the same attire he wore when he committed a crime for which he is infamously known of. They were currently waiting for Kuratsuchi and her army to arrive so that they could do battle. This clear ground was chosen because it was effective one that would allow Naruto to thin down their numbers using the Flying Thunder God technique. I still think you should just watch Itachi. Your health is deteriorating far more quickly than we had anticipated, and that battle with Deidara did not do you any favors. Should you continue to put more pressure on your body, we won't be able to do something about your illness, Naruto stated, concern all over his voice and face. Itachi sighed. He knew that Naruto wanted to speak to him about this when he said to hurry when they were still with Konan, I've told you before, I'm fine. I know the limits of my body, and when I can't fight I will stop. Yes, you've said you are fine, but Kisame told me that you are not really well. Despite him never admitting it, he is really worried about you. He told me that you take your medicine more often these days, which is not good for you, Naruto said, again the concern in his tone never leaving. I am a shinobi, Naruto. If I'm to die, it has to be in the battlefield if it can be helped. He had no plans of dying though. However, he knew his body was reaching its limit, and he had yet to even meet his date with his foolish little brother. He just wanted to have this last battle by Naruto's side and then go back to the hideout to reserve his strength for his little brother. I understand that, but if something happened to you, I don't know what I'd do. You are like a child. Sometimes a small smile spread across Itachi's lips. Do you really need me to carry you as you go? You have started your plans. Allies have been found. It is a matter of gathering them and see if they can work together. Getting them to cooperate together is a task that will be a pain. I will also have many enemies who will want me to fail. Responsibilities will fall onto me, and everybody needs someone every now and then. Naruto responded. The concern now faded into a mere memory. I know that, but You have Jiraiya and Tsunade. Even if I'm not there with you, you can also count on those two. Moreover, you also have the daimyo with you. When you are in pain, you can always cry on her shoulder." Naruto shook his head slightly before responding, "None of them are you, Itachi." Pausing, Naruto shook his head again. "I guess we should not talk about this now, but you know you are not permitted to use Susanoo. It puts a strain on your body, and in your current condition, the strain will break you. I may be forced to seal you Manjikyu Sharingan, so you can't use it. You are almost blind anyway." No doubt if he went overboard, Naruto would seal his Sharingan the moment they leave this place. However, he was not planning on doing something like that. "You will do the heavy assaults and I will do the finishing while watching your back." "Sounds like a plan," Naruto said before silence settled down. A few minutes later, Kuratsuchi came to a halt. When she finally saw the two men her sensor had told her that they seemed to be waiting for her, she snorted at the thought of two men standing before her with the intention of stopping her and her army. She had about 600 men with her. Against two was a mismatch. The numbers always did tilt the advantage. She was not going to underestimate them, though. For them to stand so calmly before them meant that they believed in their strength, and the leader of Amigakure believed they could handle. Of course, she did not believe that only two men could stand in her way. It could be arrogance that brought them here. Either case, it did not really matter. She held the advantage. Once she got close to see them clearly, she was only able to recognize the Namikaze because the other man was masked, and she did not recognize the chakra from anywhere. But looking at those two, she could tell that they were very much prepared for this. She still smirked, though luck was on her side. She finally got to see the Namikaze in person. Even though her grandfather refused to allow her to organize troops to murder him today, she would get her chance at him. The blonde was first to stand up and walk up to her. "Oh, what a lovely surprise to see you here, Namikaze." The venom in her tone almost made Naruto pump the Kyuubi's chakra into his system to counter it. "I can say the same, Kuratsuchi." Naruto responded, smiling a bit at the black-haired woman. "I must say you do look lovely, pretty. Much more than what I've heard talk about. Wrong words at the wrong time. I feel like throwing up after hearing those words from you." The disgust in her face not hidden. Really, he had to compliment her on her beauty. Normally she would have appreciated the comment, but he was Namikaze. That was enough reason to feel disgusted. Naruto merely smiled at her. "Come on, Kuratsuchi, you don't have to be so rude. I mean, I have yet to do anything to you." He studied the silent men behind her with a careful eye. So far, he could say that there were mostly Chunin, which meant it was not going to be a big problem, especially when he had the oration. "Saying my name like that makes me want to spill out my guts, and that smile of yours is making me mad by the second." Kuratsuchi was certainly not smoothing anything. Her eyes darted towards the other man. She had noticed that he had yet to move a muscle. It was like he seemed content on seeing this little chatter continue. "You say such hurtful words." He certainly did not look hurt, and a second later the smile vanished. A mask of impassiveness took over. "Now then, will you return home kindly? I would rather not fight with you if it can be helped." Itachi felt like rolling his eyes, though Naruto was not lying. He was still saying those words because it would not do well to his conscience if they started fighting and killing the IWA shinobi. The blonde knew that they were not going to give up, and he himself wanted to fight as it would help him. Perhaps he was just saying those words just so he could make himself feel better about what he was going to do. Kuratsuchi scoffed. "The feeling is not mutual. I would love nothing more than to fight you, and I will not offer you any chance of surrendering. I want to crush every bone in your body and drag you back to IWA as my trophy." "I guess it can't be helped," Naruto said. "Don't worry, I won't kill you," Kuratsuchi said, raising her hand on Q. Hundreds of kunai was flung towards Naruto in great speed. What the blonde did notice was that they were mixed with explosive tags before they could reach him. Powerful gusts of wind picked up in front of him before they connected with the thrown projectiles. The explosive tags exploded upon contact with the wind jutsu, igniting fireworks between the two parties. Naruto disappeared back to Itachi. After that, Kuratsuchi merely smirked. It would have been disappointing if that had gotten him. She mused silently before stepping back to her men. "Should I cut their numbers now?" Naruto asked, taking out the three-pronged kunai from the pouch behind him. Itachi nodded. "It will be good for us if their numbers are cut down, and using that technique will put them on edge, giving us an emotional advantage over them." Naruto nodded and created a shadow clone. He hurled the clone into the sky for it to prepare the jutsu. The clone went through several hand seals before summoning the marked kunais into the battlefield. Upon their appearance in the sky, the clone did a wind jutsu that sent the kunais hurling towards the IWA army. They managed to dodge and block them. However, the objective was not to kill but to take their positions on the ground. "Oi, is that what I think it is?" a man asked, looking down at the three-pronged kunai that was embedded on the ground. "Shit, it is that cursed jutsu." Panic spread like a wildfire in large waves. "Quick, get away from T." The man never finished his words. Naruto appeared before him, crouched on the ground, lightning blade on his right hand. A second later, his head was rolling on the ground. Get away from those cursed kunais! Kuratsuchi yelled loudly as her men began to panic loudly when heads started rolling on the battlefield. She had no way of knowing that he could use that cursed jutsu without being able to predict where he would appear. It made it difficult to stop him. Bastard, he is over there! Kick the kunai away from you, he just appears out of nowhere. Damn it, I can't see him. Where is he? Itachi merely counted the seconds as Naruto flashed around the Iwagakure shinobi. After counting, he stood up preparing to enter the fray himself. He should be about done by now, he thought. Naruto appeared beside him looking a bit out of breath. Despite the many heads he had cut off, there was no single drop of blood on his clothes. The blood was only on the blade, but that was also rid off when it was flicked and then put away. That took much from me than I anticipated, Naruto stated as he recovered his breath. Shall we? Itachi merely walked beside the blonde. Was they slowly made their way towards the enemy. This is going to be another massacre, a man stated, fear radiating from his voice as he stared at the headless bodies that lay around the battlefield. As a kenjutsu expert, he could not help but admire the work done by the blonde. It was just magnificent art. The heads were cleaved off the bodies with such precision and delicacy that he wished to take one and place it as him as a piece of art. Screw what anyone would think of his thoughts. Yeah, another agreed. Looking down at the corpses, at least he stopped using that cursed jutsu. Now we can fight him on level ground, one added, looking on the bright side of things. Although their numbers were thinned considerably in a mere minute, the two enemies seemed to be moving towards them to engage in a fair fight. That was at least something, though Kuratsuchi was seething at the turn of events. She could not allow her army's morale to hit bottom. See, because of this, hold your heads high. Where's your pride? Don't give up now when you can still fight. Curse that damn Namikaze. Remember to keep it light, Naruto said to Itachi as the two picked up their pace. Itachi did not respond. He merely took out a kunai and flung it towards the remaining shinobi before he went through hand seals. Kunai Kage Bunshin. Naruto did not wait for a second invitation to add to the attack. He jumped up to the air and held a single hand seal. Futon Daitopa, the wind jutsu, enhanced the speed of the kunais Itachi had thrown and gave them a downwards momentum as Naruto blew them from above the sky. Do not underestimate us, an IWA man said, going through hand seals of his own earth-style mud wall. He slammed his hands to the ground and a wall of earth sprouted from the ground. The speeding kunais were met with the wall and could not break through. The wall stood still as the kunais impudent on it. After coming down on some fast speeds, not a single kunai was able to make it past the wall, but Itachi was able to get through behind the group of 5 who were hidden behind the wall. Naruto teleported behind the Uchiha as Itachi took out his sword and with deadly precision 5 heads dropped to the ground. Fire, Naruto said, covering Itachi's back. They were now surrounded by 100 men who looked intent on breaking them. Both their backs are facing each other. Itachi quickly spun around and did hand seals fire style great fireball no jutsu. The Uchiha spat out a large fireball that went towards Naruto's side of things. The blonde held a single hand sign and released gusts of winds that fused with the fireball, enhancing its speed and destructive capabilities. Itachi did not wait to see how it would fare as he was certain another earth wall was going to be released to block the jutsu. He charged at 4 men who were coming towards him with murderous intentions. His blade fully gripped, he braced himself. The Uchiha blocked a kunai that was swung towards his head. He pushed back quickly as he was forced to duck under a swing that looked to cleave his head off his shoulders. Another man of the 4 jumped up with an attempt to kick the Uchiha under his heel while he was still crouching on the ground. While the other man had jumped into the air, another tried to kick down at the Uchiha from the ground. Itachi could only block the kick coming from the ground at his level. The one from above could not be blocked, especially when there were other 2 waiting to take the initiative. Itachi held out both his hands whilst on a crouched position in an attempt for a defense. The blade was still gripped firmly. Naruto appeared above him and kicked the man above the Uchiha. The kick was sent through to the air and sent the man flying away. While falling down the ground, Naruto released more gusts of winds that sent the other 2 flying away from them. By the time he touched the ground, Itachi was already on his own feet. The Uchiha was holding the foot of the man who had attempted to kick him. Naruto was quick to form a small Rasengan before plunging it into the man's gut. Earth-style mud dragon. The jutsu was charged at both Naruto and Uchiha. Naruto waited for Itachi to handle the dragon with a fire jutsu. He did not have to wait long as the infamous Uchiha went through hand seals before releasing his jutsu fire-style great dragon's breath. The jutsu Itachi released sped towards the mud dragon in the same speed. The others settled for watching the jutsus collide, while others got ready for action when the jutsus collided. Neither succeeded in breaking through the other. They merely cancelled each other out before a smoke settled down because of the collision. Earth-style earth Spikes, another man yelled, hitting the ground with both his hands. The ground beneath Naruto and Itachi shook before the two jumped into the air. Earth spikes sprouted from the ground. Nearly the two would have been pierced if they had been a second later in their getaway. However, while they were still in air, there was a problem for their landing, because now everyone was watching them sure as hell. When they touched the ground, more assaults were going to rain on them. Naruto clasped both his hands, manipulated the wind around him, whined, hammered. Despite the jutsu being called a hammer, it was not precisely a hammer. What Naruto did was manipulate the wind beneath him into the form of something slab. The height was a little smaller, no more than, but the width was very much large. It was more of a wind slab than anything. The force the jutsu carried was enough to crush anything under it depending on the pressure Naruto put. The jutsu Naruto had formed sped down the ground and leveled the spikes that had formed. Debris picked up on the ground, but both Naruto and Itachi did not mind. It was they landed directly in the middle of it. Before the debris could finally settle down, another man came from the ground, a kunai on his right hand. He shot out like a bullet in front of Naruto and went straight to pierce him under his chin. Naruto was quick enough to lean back a little to avoid being pierced while Naruto dodged. Itachi moved in fast movements and punched the man straight on his chest. While he had yet to balance himself from his fine appearance, Naruto composed himself before twisting a kick to the man's temple sent him back to the others. When he started using that jutsu, I thought we were going to lose, but now I can feel the confidence radiating within me. We can do this. There was nothing to fear after all. Kuratsuchi smiled when she heard her remaining forces speak like that. It was no good for her to lose comrades, especially to that Namikaze. However, if they got their confidence back, they could fight well without anything hindering them. It would not have pleased her if more died in this battle. However, as things were, they were never going to reach Amigakure. Assassinating the leader would prove to be the best option. They seem to have grown confident. This makes it worth fighting them. I really don't like fighting someone who has no confidence in him / herself, Naruto stated, taking out his blade again. I'm going to go wild now, he said before he disappeared. Itachi only watched. Perhaps he should preserve his energy and watch Naruto. He'd never seen Naruto fight against shinobi of his quantity before. Nodding to himself, Itachi disappeared. Naruto appeared in the middle of about 20 men before anyone could attack. He struck the sword of the thunder god to the ground. Thunder shock, a burst of lightning shot from the ground and shocked literally the men who were surrounding him. The shock didn't do anything that harmful, it just paralyzed them. Long enough for his next play, Naruto held out his right hand and put it in a horizontal position. Gentle wind cutter, an invisible sword which was long formed from his stretched hand. Naruto did a swift spin along with the sharp wind blade. His spin didn't take 2 seconds to complete. However, all 20 men fell down the ground, bodies cut in half around the waist. The others could only watch in anger as their comrades dropped to the ground in 2 pieces. Dead blood sprayed everywhere, guts looking to spill out as they'd been cut around their waists. Their eyes were wide in shock, no doubt some of it from the thunder shock Naruto had released earlier. Naruto picked up his blade and strapped it on his back before looking on his jutsus of water and earth natures came towards him, roaring in fury. He merely clasped both his hands. Wind barrier. He manipulated the wind in the path of the jutsus to form a wall that could not just be broken by those jutsus. They ended canceling each other. The remaining shinobi surrounded Naruto again, leaving no way for him to escape. They formed a ring around him, glaring down at him dangerously with kunais and swords in their hands. It was like they had put him on a stage and surrounded him with vultures. There was no escape for him except through them. A smoke bomb was sent towards him and it exploded. Naruto didn't wait to be killed. Blindingly, his hands blurred through hand seals. Wine tornado. A giant tornado quickly formed beside him and picked up in speed and fury. The spinning of the tornado cleared the smoke cleared by the smoke bomb and left Naruto with his use of his full vision. The IWA shinobi were not willing to wait for what was going to happen. While their attention was focused on the tornado, Naruto summoned his second blade. He held it on his right hand and allowed it to take a horizontal position. Wind blade, another swift spin, and the wind blade, similar to wind cutter, was let loose. It left like a wave, however twice as fast as the wind cutter and much more lethal. The technique was able to cut through even the tornado he had formed. All the men in the front fell down the ground in 2 pieces. What the hell, did you just see what happened? I didn't see anything. Kuratsuchi gritted her teeth. This was doing nothing but kick down to the ground. The confidence her forces had birthed it. If continued like this, she was not going to have an army, and she wouldn't be happy about it. Curse that Namikaze, she would have to fight him herself. Naruto was suddenly blown away when a kunai with an explosive tag exploded before him. He was blown right directly into the mob of the enemy. Before he could completely regain his composure, his right hand was gripped firmly and he was kicked twice by 2 men, one of his chest and another on his gut. Naruto winced in contact before the man gripping him let loose of him fire-style dragon's breath. The jutsu was sent straight at Naruto in great speed. The blonde held both his hands and put up a wind barrier before him. The wind barrier held on against the fire jutsu. Hands burst out of the ground again. However, Naruto didn't allow himself to be caught in the same trick twice. He jumped into the air avoiding both hands. However, it seemed that his opponents just wanted him to do exactly that. Being in the air meant they could attack him without their jutsus hitting friendlies. Naruto cursed while still in midair. Earth spikes charged at him while still in midair, and several mud bullets also charged at him. Naruto knew that if he allowed those things to hit him, it wouldn't be good for his health. He flashed through hand seals. The only way to deal with earth for him in that position was to melt it with fire. He used one of the 2 fire jutsus he could use effectively, fire style Great Fireball. The jutsu collided with the earth jutsus and melted them. The small explosion that occurred below him, with danger averted, Naruto began to fall down the ground. However, as he was about to hit the ground, earth spikes burst out and waiting for him with open arms. Naruto clasped his hands and called on a familiar jutsu, Wind Hammer, because it was done in such a haste it only hit enough spikes for him to land safely. Debris did pick up after that, and Naruto was again surrounded by his enemies. They all lunged at him with intent to tear his body apart. Naruto loved his meat. He didn't want to end up as uncooked food for the vultures that hover about the sky. He flashed through hand seals, shredding blades. The jutsu was no ordinary jutsu. It was an S-rank jutsu that killed on contact without struggle. What Naruto did was create small blades of wind around him in numbers close to thousands. These blades spin around like a shuriken while swirling around the user. Once fully formed, they spread out all sides and cut through anything in their way. The blades could cut through flesh like a chainsaw. Going through fresh meat bones were not a difficulty as long as they were within a certain range. The IWA shinobi weren't fortunate, as the dangerous jutsu did what it was called. It shredded them down like a paper shredder. The sight was awfully disturbing to the gut. Blood guts, brains splattered around Naruto. Screams of terror arose at the sight, and those remaining took a step back in fear and not so feeling well with that they were seeing. It was like their comrades had been chopped down into pieces in preparation for a feast of stew. A headless body was one thing, but these were no longer bodies. These were guts, small pieces of meat and blood everywhere. Worse, earth refused to cover it up or even drink the blood. What the hell is this? Throwing up some did just that. Murderer, this is just horrible. There was no way they could retrieve the bodies of their dead comrades and bury them home. How could they? It was just guts and pieces of flesh everywhere. Naruto had no blood on him. However, he didn't look at the sight his jutsu left behind. He looked up in the heavens. They couldn't attack with what he'd just done. It was enough bloodshed for him to take. He couldn't take it anymore. Still, he kept the mask of impassiveness on his face. Suiton Mizurapa Kuratsuchi shot a jet stream of water towards an unsuspecting Naruto. The jutsu collided with him and sent him away from her remaining forces. Naruto hit the ground on his knees and looked at the furious black-haired woman. His expression became grim. Bastard, I'll kill you for this, Kuratsuchi yelled, anger, murderous anger flowing through her veins, and the glare she sent Naruto told him exactly what she felt. Naruto stood up and looked at Itachi. The Uchiha nodded. Will you return home, Kuratsuchi? Do you wish for more of your men to die before your very eyes? Kuratsuchi never stopped glaring at Naruto. It doesn't have to be that way if you fight me yourself. Naruto shook his head. I don't wish to kill any more of your men. I don't know much about your abilities. Maybe you can handle me, but those you lead cannot do that. It was true, and there was still his partner to deal with. I swear, Namikaze, I'll kill you. Kuratsuchi spoke in a low growl. Naruto nodded, not accepting that she would kill him. But the challenge, I'll be waiting for you, Kuratsuchi-san. He offered her a real sad smile that made her stomach twist. Should we find ourselves in such a position next time, I won't be merciful. Is this what you call being merciful? Kuratsuchi growled, looking at the results of Naruto's last jutsu. The disgust was painted with artistry on her face. Perhaps not, he admitted in a quiet tone. The fact that he was acting like he was sad made Kuratsuchi mad. He looked sorry for his actions and was not denying that he may not have been merciful. He was also showing her kindness by allowing her to leave without another round, ensuring watch your back wherever you go, because for the rest of your life I will hate you, resent you, and hunt you down until I capture you. Are no different from your cursed father. Her fingers snapped and she was gone. Naruto fell down on his knees and threw out the meal he'd eaten earlier. He then stood up after the episode and created a clone to collect the remaining Eurasian kunais he'd left behind. He walked up to Itachi before looking at the heavens again. I wonder what I was thinking when I created a jutsu like that. Itachi offered no words of comfort. He stood up from the rock he'd been sitting on and spoke. We should return to Konan. Standing here. NEL. He trailed off when he felt movement behind Naruto. The Uchiha moved quickly enough to block a kunai that was aimed at Naruto's spinal cord. One of the enemies had left behind and managed to get this close to them while their thoughts were preoccupied. If it had not been for Itachi, Naruto would have been hurt seriously. Time slowed slightly as Naruto turned around to see what had happened. In his moment of weakness, blood sprayed on his face and the assailant's body dropped to the ground, but Itachi remained frozen. Itachi the Uchiha turned around slowly, mask broken, eyes closed, and a sad smile on his face. Amigakure Konan shook her head. When she saw the look on Naruto's face, he looked pathetic, if not miserable. There are times when she forgot that he was still just a kid. Perhaps he had grown, but he was still not experienced enough in the shinobi world, and in the path he's taken he was surely going to do much more of the things he'd just done, and he would lose some of those he loved. Naruto was sitting on the edge of the window, legs outside the tower, looking over. Amigakure, a soft touch on his shoulder brought him back to earth. It wasn't that he'd been inside his thoughts, no, he'd been lost in a world void of anything. He looked back at Konan. She gave him a small, very small smile. "Are you alright?" she asked quietly. "Not really, but I'll be fine," Naruto said, tone grim as well as his expression. "How are we going to deal with this mess now?" he asked, changing the subject. His health was important, however this matter needed to be resolved before he could leave the village. Konan thought twice before responding. "Men," she shook her head, "with this complete failure I believe they won't be testing Aim's power anymore. It most likely that there'll be tensions surrounding the two villages." Naruto nodded. "I guess for now it'll be best if you restrict your forces' movements around the Earth country for an obvious reason. They'll not be allowed to roam free. Death will most likely meet them if they venture around the Earth country. I'll see to it that they won't be going there. However, we must deal with the issue. Inoki cannot be allowed to do something like this," Konan said in a firm tone. She wouldn't allow the man to leave this without paying. Again, Naruto nodded. "Let us wait to see what he'll do. It won't do any good if we rush over to Iwa demanding that he explain and compensate for his actions. It'll be tricky because we suffered no damage. However, we will pay that man a visit soon." Konan noted that he was using "we" as if he was part of Amigakure. By the way he was speaking, it seems like she'd made himself a member of her village. Well, she wasn't complaining about it. "That still leaves you. Kuratsuchi will be out for my head. I think that she will be hunting for me everywhere I go. It is most likely that assassins will be out to get me. I will watch my back and have someone to that. Also, don't worry about my safety. You have Amigakure to worry about," Naruto said, his tone regaining some firmness, and he was looking down the streets of Amigakure. "Are you sure you can watch your back all the time?" "I can't watch my back all the time. Don't worry though, I have managed to get some friends along the way. Allow me to introduce to you to one of them. He is one of the most trusted ally I have," Naruto said. "Sure, come out." Just then a shadow appeared behind the two of them. Konan could not see the face of the man. Everything was just black. He blended well with darkness and seemed to be one with the shadows. She had not sensed his presence, and that was something. "Is he always watching you?" Naruto shook his head. "I travel a lot, and he has his own job to do. He will be in contact with you from time to time. His specialty is information gathering." Konan nodded. "We'll mostly deal with the Iwa matter. After your first conference, tensions will just rise high and a lot of talk will arise. I'll need to bolster my security. Sure, we'll inform you should there be impending threat to the village's safety." Naruto shifted back to the tower and faced Konan again. "I will take my leave now. Are you going to inform Konoha of this now?" Naruto closed his eyes, going through some thoughts. "I'll write to Tsunade. She should be receiving the message today. I won't return to Konoha at least for a few days. I need some time alone." He gathered his thoughts before speaking again. "Please take care of Itachi for me." Konan wasn't going to lie to him. She was going to be frank. The wound he received wasn't fatal. However, the kunai that pierced him was dripped in poison added to his disease. "It looks bad, but he will survive." Naruto nodded. But he should have known when Kisame came to him that things were already worse. Moreover, Itachi was hurt because he'd let his guard down and showed weakness whilst still in the battlefield. "I know he will. I'll talk to you tomorrow." Naruto disappeared in a flash of yellow, and when Konan turned to face her, he was already gone. She shook her head. "Things have just turned troublesome." Konoha later that day, root based to think that the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki would be capable of doing something like this. Danzo mused silently, looking at the report he'd received from the events that transpired earlier during the day. He didn't think that Naruto had it in him to be like his father, but it appears that the younger blonde was a lot more brutal than his father. Well, at least he wasn't as naive as he was beginning to think he was. However, the end of the battle still showed weakness on the blonde's part, but it was alright as long as he did not cave in during the battle itself. Still, his mind couldn't hope to understand what Inoki was trying to accomplish. He didn't think that Inoki was that stupid enough to attempt to take over a village. With only 600 men, there had to be something that the man was trying to achieve. There had to be something his mind just couldn't grasp it. It could be that Iwagakure was in some sort of trouble economically and politically, but they didn't seem to be suffering from anything in terms of military power. Danzo thought something along those lines. There had to be something that Inoki was trying to achieve, and something he was planning. "What should we do about this, Danzo-sama?" Question referring to the latest report they'd read. Danzo his head. "We will wait to see what Tsunade will do, but in the meantime Prepare my visit to the fire daimyo Hidanzo-sama. Meanwhile, Uzushiogakure Naruto found himself being pulled into the familiar sewer he didn't like very much to visit. His eyes became fixed on the blood-red eyes of the beast that was locked within the cage inside his gut. You were rather pathetic. The QB cleared distaste and its voice was evident. Naruto merely smiled at the words. What do I owe the compliment? Kurama snorted. You are making enemies for yourself, and soon you will start to lose your loved ones. Some will die pathetically, some will die in front of your eyes. That Uchiha was only cut a little, and now you've become all depressed because you failed to do anything. How are you going to cope with deaths of loved ones if a cut that only draws blood is enough to make you miserable? I have you to tell me how pathetic I am. Naruto responded with a sad smile. Besides, I'm not down because Itachi was hurt, I'm only down because of the outcomes of his situation. The blonde said, I fear that even if Itachi survives, he won't be able to fight anymore. 3 years ago, Itachi's eyesight was already bad, and while he was training me, he continuously used his manjikyu to make me better. The more he uses the manjikyu, the more his sight worsens, and so does his sickness. If I want him to continue living, I will have to make a choice.